Welcome to the CareGiver reality show with your host, David Levy, helping thousands of family caregivers, helping them find solutions to the challenges and frustrations presented by this important responsibility. So if you are in the position of caring for a spouse or a parent, a loved one who is no longer able to care for themselves, or if you know someone who is, this hour will be worth the listening. Now, let's tune in to today's edition of CareGiver Reality with your host, David Levy.
Good evening, South Florida, American world. This is your host, David Levy. I'm calling in to give you our Tuesday afternoon greeting. I'm sorry I can't be there. I'm a little under the weather today, but we've got a great show, phenomenal host, and I can't wait to introduce her and have her go and do her thing. As always, you're listening to us on 1470 AM. You're seeing us on caregiverreality.com, amp2.tv, and www.1470radio.com. In any event, today is a very exciting day because, not only am I doing this show by remote, but not by Skype, but I have in the studio for everybody to hear tonight somebody that I have the greatest professional and personal respect for, known for her capabilities for the last 15 years that I've known her, Marcia Teal. She's the marketing director for Arden Court, but besides that, a true professional in the caring industry, a wonderful person to associate with, and I couldn't be happier to have her sitting in that chair, and those of you that are watching will certainly understand why, because this is a far prettier face than I could ever be. And so, good evening, Marcia. Welcome on board.
Hey, David. Sorry you're under the weather, but I'm glad to be here and sitting in your chair and keeping it warm for you.
Well, you know, sometimes things happen for reasons, and I couldn't be more pleased. And I know you have a lot of great things to tell the audience, and I'm going to let you get started in just a moment. And, downstream folks, we've got a lot of new and very, very exciting things planned for this time slot and Caregiver Reality. We've decided that we're going to bring a whole different level of both information and entertainment to you in the coming weeks, months, and years. We think you're really going to like it, and we're going to start off tonight, as I said, with Marcia Teal, and maybe if I can twist her arm a little and convince her, she'll be back more often, and maybe I can even get her to be a co-host. Who knows what will happen in the future. In any event, please sit back, enjoy the show. The next hour is all about you. If you want to call in, you certainly know how to reach us at 1-888-565-1470, and Marcia can certainly answer any and every question that you might possibly have, and we'll do an absolutely great job. So rather than waste any more airtime listening to me make introductions, Marcia Teal, take it away, babe.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I've been working with caregivers for 15 years, family caregivers, and over the course of the last 15 years, I've met with thousands of family caregivers, either adult children or spouses, and they are very confused sometimes about what the next course of action would be when they are actually taking care of a family member at home with dementia. My forte is dementia caregiving. I'm passionate about it. I love to talk about it. I love to educate people about it. And I have a question for you tonight. When is the best time to look for a dementia-assisted living facility? Good question. The answer is before you need one. And that's what I want to talk about today is how do I even begin to do this? How do I start? You know, you don't want to wait for a crisis to happen. You don't want to wait until mom or dad's getting ready to be discharged from the hospital, can't go back home for whatever reason, and oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Where am I going to go? What is she going to do? The hospital's pressuring you to discharge, and you have no clue. So today, we're going to be talking about the 4 P's of placement. What you need to know before you actually choose a dementia-assisted living facility. And some of you may remember back in the old days when there was no assisted living for memory care, that's when you had to go to a nursing home. The good news now is if someone's home and they don't need a nursing home, but they can't stay home for many reasons, the caregiver can't handle it anymore, they're too overwhelmed, there's conflict at home, maybe your family member is not getting enough stimulation or proper socialization, what are you going to do? The good news is there's a place in the middle, and it's a dementia-assisted living. So we're going to talk today about the 4 Ps of placement, what you need to know. So the first thing, how do we get started? Where do we look? Certainly you could look in the phone book. I mean, gosh, everybody knows there's, lots of places there, but you're taking your chances. You might be wasting your time. There might be even some of those places that are out of business. So how do you even begin to get a list together? My recommendation is to ask your friends and family, your neighbors, hey, I might be wanting to consider looking at some dementia-assisted living. Do you have any experience with that? Do you have any recommendations? Have you heard of any good places? That would where you want to start. If you come up empty-handed with that, the next best thing is ask for a recommendation from a healthcare professional. Certainly your doctors, primary care, neurologists, social workers, geriatric care managers, all of these healthcare professionals work in the industry of assisted living, of dementia, of geriatrics, and they're going to know places to help you, and they're going to know who are the best ones for you to visit for your situation. So start with that, get a list together. Okay, now I have my list. What do I do? The first thing you want to do is you want to call up and make an appointment to come to visit. When you go visit, you want to make sure you take another trusted pair of eyes with you. It's very important to bring somebody with you, somebody that you trust. Could be a good friend, it could be a care manager, but somebody that can come with you, because chances are it's going to be overwhelming information. You've never had to do this before. You don't know what to ask. So you want to have somebody there that you can bounce things off of, someone who can see things you might not see, hear things you might not hear, and then afterwards you can talk about it. And you might be very surprised. You might have differing opinions about that. So it's very good to have that. When you go and you make an appointment, plan to be there at least an hour, possibly 2, because it's very important. This is a very, very serious decision you're going to be making, and so you want to make sure that you plan enough time. If you make an appointment and you go and it's over in 15 minutes, then it's not the right place. You want to be sure that you're getting everything you need to know, because you need the data, and that's what we're going to be doing, is gathering data. You also want to make a list of questions that you might want to ask, especially questions that might pertain uniquely to your situation. Hey, we have a pet, we have a cat. Can we bring a cat? What about a dog? What about somebody who's in a wheelchair? What about somebody who has special dietary needs? So you want to ask those questions because that's maybe unique to your situation. And make sure that when you go to an assisted living that you're actually touring the dementia part of that assisted living. There are some assisted livings that have standalone, and they're all dementia care. That's what they do. And there are other assisted livings that have a unit or a floor or a section for dementia. So you want to be sure you're going to be comparing apples to apples and oranges and not apples to oranges. It's very important because you can be basically kind of swayed by the looks of a beautiful assisted living, but yet their memory care might be a different story. Okay, so now we've got that. Now you're on your way, you're visiting. You want to know the location. The location is important for a couple reasons. Number one, where is it located? Because you want to be sure that it's in a safe neighborhood, because obviously you might be wanting to go on weekends, at nighttime to visit, and you want to be comfortable being there and not being afraid to visit when it's dark. The other thing you want to note is the distance. It's my opinion that it's better to choose an assisted living that's further away that you have more confidence in, so you'll have peace of mind, rather than choose one just because it's 5 minutes down the street. You don't want to have to feel like you have to be there, although it's close, because you don't have the confidence or the trust in the care. So it's worth the trip, I would say at least within an hour's drive or less, that would be acceptable for finding the right place. So now you've got your location, you're there, you're looking around. First thing you want to check for is the licensing of the facility. It should be readily available, perhaps on the wall. Make sure they do have a current license. Make sure it's up to date. And also you want to check out their state survey. Every couple years, the Agency for Healthcare Administration does surprise visits at assisted livings, and they're checking for all the things that you would want them to check to make sure that your loved one is going to be in a safe, healthy environment. So check those out first and foremost. Then you're going to be looking around, look at the aesthetics. You're going to be seeing what it looks like, what it smells like. Give it the sniff test. And I want to say something about that. A lot of people who have dementia obviously get to the point where they're incontinent and they have accidents. So if you're taking a tour and you smell something and it's just because a resident walked by who perhaps just had an accident, that's okay. It happens. It's life. It's going to be there, and hopefully it gets cleaned up and life goes on. However, if it's a constant odor, if it overwhelms you and it's throughout the building, that could be indicative of the quality of care there. So you want to note that. Look at the layout. Look at how everything is laid out. Is it a ground floor? Does it have elevators? Does it have stairs? These are things you want to take into consideration because you want your family member to be able to navigate and not be confused and have the best possible chance of finding their way around, although the staff should be able to help them. But there could be cues for them. And so anything that the facility can do to help that resident feel more comfortable in their surroundings, be able to have self-esteem because maybe they said, oh yeah, I know where that is, I see that. So you want to look for those types of things. Make sure it's secure. How do they keep it secure? Do they just wear ankle bracelets and expect the alarm to go off and then have to grab people back in? Or do they have other and better ways of keeping their residents secure? On the outside, if there's a pool, run, because bodies of water and people with dementia do not go together. No pools. Obviously, you want to make sure that they have good visiting hours. Are there restrictions? How do you get in? Do you have a code? Does someone have to let you in? Those are some of the things that you want to check. Also, you want to interview family members that are there. It's real important to ask people that are in the building visiting their family members what they think. But more importantly, you also want to make sure that you ask them outside the building. Outside the building, you might get a different story. You can feel free to ask people in the parking lot what they think because they're going to feel more comfortable doing one-on-one, and they're usually happy to answer. Don't feel that you're going to offend somebody. Just say, hey, I'm looking, do you have a loved one here? What do you think? How long have they been here? What's your opinion? And ask them, what do they do best? And then ask them, what could they do better? And I think they will probably share that information with you. One of the things you want to do, too, while you're at the community is ask the representative there, can I have a phone number or do you have a family member, past or present, that I possibly could get their telephone number and call them in the privacy of my own home? I want to be able to ask them some questions, maybe later, something that I might think of. So that's important too, and they should be willing to be able to give you that information. If they're proud of their community and they have a lot to offer and they want to share that with a lot of people, one of the best ways they can share that is by having family advocates. So that's real important. Okay, so now we've got the place. You're there, you're looking. What else are you going to look for? You're going to look at the people who are there. The people make the place. You could have the Taj Mahal, you could have the White House. It doesn't matter so much what it looks like as long as it's clean and it's safe, because newer doesn't necessarily mean better, and older doesn't necessarily mean bad. So we're going to look at the place, but we're also going to be now looking at the people. The people who live there, first of all. When you're looking, you want to see, are they smiling? Are they happy? Are they engaged? Are they well-groomed? What do they look like? What do they smell like even? You want to really observe the people, make sure that there's a large enough resident population that your particular family member could connect to. You want to make sure that if you have a gentleman that would be moving in, ask about how many men are there as opposed to women. You want to be able to have peer groups for them. You also want to ask about the levels of cognition, because yes, each place is going to have high functioning, mid functioning, and lower functioning residents, but you want to be sure that there's enough of a population so that your family member can connect to other people, not only from a cognitive point of view, but also from a personality point of view. And that's important. And then you also might want to consider asking about languages spoken. Sometimes people with dementia revert back to a primary language that's not English. It could be Spanish, it could be Polish, it could be German, whatever it might be. And it would be really nice, although it's not a necessity, it'd be really nice for them to be able to talk to another resident in that primary language. That would be the icing on the cake if that were to happen. So these are the things you're looking at for the people that actually live there. Ask about how many residents are there, and ask about how many openings that they have and how long the rooms have been open, which is indicative also of maybe their reputation. The next thing we want to talk about are the people who work there. That is a very, very important piece of this puzzle as we're talking about the 4 Ps of placement. The 4 Ps of placement, first of all, don't include price at this point, so we're not going to be talking about price until we get down the road a little bit, gathering our information and talking about the other Ps. But the puzzle of all of this and choosing, the people that work there are probably one of the most important aspects, because the people can make or break a community. So we're going to be talking about that in more detail. What is the staffing ratio of staff to residents? Now that's kind of a leading question, and it's kind of a vague question. What you really want to ask, and I know a lot of people ask this question, what you really want to ask is, what's the ratio between direct caregivers to the residents? The direct caregivers are the ones that help with bathing, dressing, toileting, eating, walking. They're giving direct care, because technically, if a community was going to answer that question and you didn't ask about direct caregivers and you just said staff, they might say, well, we have 50 residents and we have 50 people that work here, so we have a 1-to-1 ratio. Well, that's not true, because they are technically allowed to include in that ratio the cook, the maintenance man, the person who cleans the windows, the person who mops the floor, the activity people, everybody. So it's important to know how you ask the question to get the answer that you really want. Okay. When you're asking about the people that work there, ask about nursing care. Nursing care is so important in assisted living because obviously we want to keep our residents happy, safe, and healthy. So the healthy part would be nurses there. They're able to administer medications, monitor the residents for any health signs that might be cropping up, give them regular weight checks, regular blood pressure checks, triage anything. Triage is very, very important. Triaging somebody in a facility to prevent them from unnecessarily going on to a hospital to be checked out is so important, especially for people with dementia. It is very hard and very traumatic for people to go to a hospital, end up in the ER, having to wait there, not being seen for hours sometimes, trying to keep them from wandering out, trying to keep them from, being disruptive. It's very, very difficult. So if at all possible, you want to be able to triage to see if they really do have to go to the hospital. And of course, if it's a true emergency, they're going to go. But unnecessarily hospitalization is never good. So nurses can do that if they're available, and you want to find out when are they available, how are they available, are they in the building, are they just on call from their houses? You want to have a comfort level with that. Ask about other professionals in the building, what other kind of services that they might offer. Do they have physical therapy available? That could be very important because in-house physical therapy in someone's home, which an assisted living is someone's home, the physical therapy can help them maintain their independence. And that's important to see if they can have that rather than have to go out to a rehab center, different environment, different caregivers, totally different situation where they're going to be more confused. So you want to ask about what kind of services come into the building. You know, what do they have here that's available in-house that might prevent my loved one from having to go out to get those services? The more in-house services that they can provide, the better off your family member will be, and the easier it will be for you as a caregiver to not have to pick them up and take them. So we're going to take a little break now, and we'll be back with some more P's of placement.
Grab a pen, because you're going to be given some really important information and a phone number to call that will really help you.
Did you know that the law allows people to protect assets and qualify for Medicaid? Did you know that Medicaid can pay for home care, assisted living, and nursing home care at even the best facilities and with even the best of agencies? Hi, I'm Scott Solkoff, and I write the book on Florida elder law. My father and I have authored the leading textbook on Florida elder law, now in its 14th edition. I lecture, I train, I teach other lawyers and judges all about the law, and I can teach you too. I love teaching and advising my elderly clients and their families. Good elder law planning can save the family nest egg and result in a tremendous difference in quality of care. Board-certified elder law attorneys, I'm board certified, are specialists in planning for incapacity, wills, and trusts, and protecting assets against the cost of long-term care. Come in and see me. I charge $250 for a 2-hour meeting, and I don't think I've ever had one person tell me it wasn't worth many times that amount. We don't do free meetings, which often are nothing more than a sales pitch from someone who really needs the business. Call me at 561-733-4242. I've been in business for over 20 years doing just this work, and am certified as a specialist by the Florida Bar. Set an appointment. That's 561-733-4242. Come see me in my Delray Beach office on Atlantic Avenue. You just have to call my office at 561-733-4242, and I'm Scott Solkoff. Let me help you protect your assets, qualify for Medicaid or VA benefits, have greater peace of mind knowing that it's been done, and a higher quality of life. So again, call me, Scott Solkoff, at 561-733-4242, and remember, call your parents, not just to tell them about Scott Solkoff, just to tell them that you love them and appreciate them. I'm going to call my parents now.
The hiring of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based on advertisements alone. You can call our office at 561-733-4242 to get more information about our qualifications and expertise. This is Caregiver Reality with gerontologist David Levy and caregiver expert Paul Vadiato, who ask you to call in and speak with him on the air toll-free at 888-565-1470. That's 888-565-1470 to share a story or important information. Now, back to today's Caregiver Reality Show.
Hi, welcome back to Caregiver Reality Hour. I'm Marcia Teal, your host today, and thank you for joining us. Before we continue with the 4 P's of placement that we've been talking about, I want to give a shout out to Pop's Neighborhood Pharmacy. If you've never been to Pop's, you need to go visit them. They're located at 20 Northeast 2nd Avenue in Deerfield Beach. What makes Pop's great is that they're small and they're custom, and they can do for you what a large retail pharmacy can't do. One of the things that they're known for is their customer service. They will bend over backwards to help you. Steve is the pharmacist there, and he is willing to work with you, talk with you, confer with your doctor. What's important about that, too, is if your doctor has a special formula that needs to be compounded, that means mixing together, this is what you need to go to POPs for, because they actually have that capability instead of a big pharmacy chain that just dispenses from already mixed up compounds and pills. They can actually make it to your doctor's specifications. So that's real important to know if your doctor needs that. You want to see them because they are the best. When it comes to knowing how you need your medicines. They're located in Deerfield. They're not that far from the communities. They will be able to help you Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 are their hours. However, we all know that, medicine and caregiving doesn't stop on the weekends. So if you need something on the weekends, you can just pick up the phone, call Steve, the pharmacist, and he will actually meet with you and help you take care of that. So give them a call at 754-227-7252. Again, that's 754-227-7252, and you'll be very glad you did. So we're back to the 4 P's of placement, and we're talking about the people who work at facilities. We've already talked about the place, the location, and all that goes with that. And we've talked about the people that live there, what to look for. And we're talking now about the people who work there, which is very important. So we're back to that. And we want to ask, what is the hiring criteria that you hire your staff? What do you look for in a staff? You want to make sure that the staff, the actual direct caregiving staff, they have good language skills, because they need to be communicating with your family member who's going to be living there. And people with dementia have enough trouble understanding language. So you want to be sure that the people that are taking care of them can actually be understood. That's very, very important. So many times, the families themselves can't understand, and it makes caregiving and managing the caregiving very, very difficult. So you want to ask about that. But as you're touring, look at those staff people that are on the floor and observe them. Are they happy? Are they smiling? Do they appear to like their job? Or are they kind of like grumpy looking and they're not welcoming and not friendly? You're going to be going there and you're going to be visiting, and you want to be in a comfortable environment where you're welcomed and people are friendly and people talk to you. So look at the staff and, talk to them and, hi, how are you? And what's your name? And how long have you worked here? And what do you like best about your job? And they will shine and talk back to you if they're the right caregiver for that particular job. Sometimes caregiving is how do I want to say it? Caregiving is hard no matter who you are, but it doesn't have to be as hard as some people make it. So you want to be sure that you feel comfortable and you're understanding the people that work there and where they're coming from. Are they coming from a place of, I love my job, these are my people, I love my residents, or are they just going through the motions? So that's important. You want to observe how those staff are interacting with the residents. How do they handle a resident if there's a resident that's not doing what they want them to do? How do they speak to them? Are they talking in a nice, pleasant voice, or are they gruff and barking out orders? That's important. You want to see how they maneuver that resident. Do they take them by the arm? Are they guiding them? Are they gentle? And that's very, very important. Communication techniques are so important because communication techniques differ for every person with dementia, and some things work better than other things. But you want to observe that and see if the staff has actually been trained on communication techniques for their residents. You want to listen and see if the residents are being called by their name. It could be Mary, it could be John, it could be Mrs. Smith, it could be Mr. Johnson, but not hey you, not hey sweetie, honey, dear. Everybody deserves the respect of being called by their name, however they want to be called. It might even be Dr. Joe. It might be Colonel Gary. If they have a title, and they love being called by a title, then they should be called by a title. And so you want to be sure that these residents have the respect of the staff and they're being called by name and they're not just a number. You want to ask, when was the last time that there was a major change in management. If a community has had change in management over and over, too often in a short period of time, it could be indicative that there's a problem there. So the longer the same management is there, the longer the people have worked there, the longer people stay, the better it will be for everybody, because experience matters. And you want people that have the experience, that can know what to do with your family member when your family member doesn't want to do what they want them to do. You want the experience. You want to be comfortable knowing that they know how to handle a situation. It doesn't have to be an aggressive situation, but it might be a situation where they're basically saying, I don't want to go to dinner. You can't make me. All right. So what are they going to do? Are they going to pull them and say, yes, you have to come to dinner. It's ready and you're coming and you're going to sit down and you're going to eat? If that's the way they're going to handle it, that's not the proper way. So you want to be sure to observe this and make sure that it's calm, it's comforting. You want a calm environment. I know there are some days that are in facilities that are not going to be calm, and that happens. And it's just part of the dementia experience for some of the residents and some of the staff at a facility. But in general, you want it to be a calm, happy, relaxing environment. You can ask if the facility has a family handbook or a facility handbook. Take a look at it. They might not give it to you, and that's okay, but they should show you one and let you kind of thumb through it, because you're going to find out a little bit more information about that. And what you're looking for in that is they're going to be giving you tips of how best to transition into a facility, some tips on, when to visit, how to visit. These are things that are going to help you overall. So it would be nice if a facility had that available. That being said, we're going to move on to the third P, which is the programs. The programs, that was probably, once someone is in a community, in assisted living for dementia, I would say the programs make some of the biggest differences in the residents' quality of life. Because without engaging, stimulating programs, they might as well just sit and melt away. And that's the truth. Because a person with dementia cannot figure out on their own what to do, how to do it, where to go do it, how to get there. And they need to be guided, they need to be invited, and they need to be shown. And they will go if welcomed in the right way. And even if they don't go to actively participate, they're going to be getting what we call passive stimulation. So you want to ask about activities. Who runs the activities? How many activity directors do they have for the number of residents that they serve? Very important. Is it an activity director that does it themselves, or do they just say this is what you're going to do and expect caregivers to do it? And we all know caregivers already have the job of bathing, dressing, toileting, eating, and housekeeping. So fitting in activities there is going to be pretty tough. And as you know, as a family caregiver, one person can't do it all. So you want to be sure that there are designated people to do the actual activities. The next thing you want to do is look at the calendar. There is going to be a calendar by law. In Florida, at least, every assisted living has to have a calendar printed of their programming, and they should be following it. So when you're visiting, you want to actually look at the calendar, say, well, they're supposed to be doing this now. Are they doing it? If they're not doing it, you want to ask why this particular activity is not going on. What's the reason? And they may be a valid reason for that. The entertainer didn't show up, so now we have to improvise and do something else. Maybe the residents didn't like that particular activity, so we moved on to something else. But if you see consistently non-compliance with the activity calendar, that's really not a good thing, because families and the residents look forward to these activities, and you want to be sure that they're actually being executed in the proper manner at the right time so that the residents get the stimulation that they need. You want to be sure that, again, they are being escorted to the activities. You want to even ask if it's possible if your family member could join in the activities at a certain point, and maybe they can come in and try it out for a day and see how they do it. You want to ask about programs for the family. So we've talked about programming for the residents, but programming for the families is important too, because dementia affects not just the residents, it's a family disease. Alzheimer's and other dementia, it's a family disease. Everybody's affected. So families need care too. Families need hand-holding. They need care and consideration and concern over them. So ask about family support groups. That's very important. Maybe they have a family council or family advocates. Do they have a family orientation program? It's important for you to know who is taking care of my loved one going forward, who do I contact if something's wrong, who is the head of the different departments that I can call if need be, and are there educational programs for the families? All right, so now we've gotten all this together, and you have all your 3 Ps, and now what do you do with the data? You're going to rank it. And you're going to rank it in the order, whether you've checked off yes or no to your questions, whether you've checked off the pros and cons. But you're going to look at this data you've collected, and you're going to actually rank it in your preference. I like this one the best, and then this one, this one, this one. After you rank it in your order of preference of what you would like to have for your family member, then and only then you will actually attach the price. And so now you're going to match up the pricing to the place. And you're going to put in the monthly fee. You're going to add any community fee or move-in fee. It might range from $1,500 to $5,000, whatever it is. You're going to put that down. You're going to ask about levels of care. You want to make sure that you're comparing, again, apples to apples and not apples to oranges. So you want to ask, is this fee all-inclusive? Or is this just a base fee where I'm going to have add-ons down the road if my loved one needs help with cutting up their food, or they become incontinent and now they need change? So these are things that are important to ask. So put all those fees there. Now, after you've done that and ask about any extras, you might also want to ask if the facility participates in any state-sponsored financial programs, if that's a concern of yours of down the road maybe needing more financial reserves. So after you have this, it should be very easy to look at your list, and maybe your first preference is out of your ballpark. Maybe it's just not in your budget. But the good thing about it is you just go down your list, match up your budget to it, and you know that you've checked it out, you know what to expect, and you know that you found the best assisted living that you could actually afford for your budget for your family member. And that's how you do it. So the 4th P, we're at the end of the 4th P. The 4th P is the plan. After you have the first couple that you've put in order that your favorite, call those back, ask for a tour, revisit, this time unannounced, show up and say, you know, I wanted to come back a second time. I had a few other questions, and revisit that facility, because you might see, hear, or find out things that you didn't know the second time around. And so you might get new information that's going to add to your data. Discuss with the representative your time frame. Ask them about a wait list. Do they have a wait list? How do you get on a wait list? How does it work? If I'm on a wait list and you call me, if I pass, do I go to the bottom of the list? Ask about respite stays. Respite stays, as you know, are short-term stays in a assisted living, anywhere from a week, usually up to a month. And so some places have a minimum and some have a maximum. So you want to ask about that, because a respite stay is a wonderful way for you to try out an assisted living without making a long-term commitment. And with a respite stay, you pay only for the days you're there, whether it's 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks. And if you choose to leave, you have no obligations, and you do not have to pay a move-in fee. You pay only for the rent of the days that you're there. So use a respite to try out places before you make maybe a final decision. That's a great way to check out how you might see how your resident, your family member is going to acclimate, and see what your comfort level with that too. So now we've done that, and part of the plan is getting ready. You want to make sure that as a family caregiver, your new name is going to be responsible party at the community when you actually move in. and you want to be sure you're ready for that. Even if you never have to execute this plan, you want to be ready. And part of being ready is getting your financial documents in order. Make sure that you have a durable power of attorney. Make sure you have a healthcare surrogate. Make sure that you have a living will. Make sure that you have readily available copies of Medicare card, supplemental insurance card, prescription benefit drug insurance card, maybe even a driver's license or ID for your family member. Have these ready because you're going to need those if and when the time comes that you need to use them to actually move into a dementia-assisted living. So have all your documents ready, have them ready and waiting, make sure they're up to date. If you have a long-term care policy, you want to know what it covers. Does it cover assisted living, or does it cover just home health, or does it cover just skilled nursing facility, or does it cover all three? So you want to know what it covers and what the daily benefit amount is, because that's going to help you make a decision, because possibly you would be using that to cover your assisted living cost, and something that maybe before then you thought you couldn't afford with your long-term care policy and maybe some other resources that would be available, you can actually have the best place that you found. So you want to ask about that. And ask about those other resources. If your loved one, your family member is a veteran, you want to ask about veterans benefits, aid and attendance. You want to ask about Medicaid planning for assisted living, if that's applicable to you. So now you have the place, and now you have the plan, even if you never have to execute it. So the last question is, my friends, when do I execute the plan? This is where people kind of get hung up on, but at least you're ready. And if a crisis does happen, at least you know where you're going to go and who you're going to see. But don't wait for that. You want to balance your quality of life with your loved one's quality of life. And if something's missing, if either you are depleted, if either of you have health problems that aren't being handled, if there's conflict here, if the scale is not balanced with either you as the family caregiver or your loved one with stimulating activities, socialization opportunities, and the scale is not balanced, that is your cue that it's time to execute your plan and not wait for a crisis to happen. Because in a crisis, I guarantee you, you probably won't be able to get in to your first choice or your second maybe, and then you're going to be having to take what you can get, and it might not be to your liking. So you want to make sure that you go in to it in a respite, make sure that you get all your questions answered, and think about this too. What if something happens to me as the family caregiver? If something happens to me and I'm not there, what's going to happen to my loved one? Who's going to take care of them? And don't leave it to chance. Don't leave it for your children to have to make that decision. It's very, very difficult. And so you'd be doing everybody a favor by making these decisions up front and letting your loved ones, your other family members, your adult children, trusted friends and family, what your plans are. Because if something, God forbid, were to happen to you, at least they would know who to call, because that was your preference of where you would like to have your loved one be. So, that being said, if you have any questions about that, you can feel free to give me a call. I'm readily available to answer questions anytime. We're very happy to be able to help you answer these questions and bounce things off of. And it's not easy, okay? And that's why we want to help. It's probably one of the hardest things that you'll have to do, but it could be one of the best things that you do in looking for and planning for future care for your family member. So if there's any questions whatsoever, you can call me at 561-498-5552. That's at Arden Courts Memory Care Community. We are a dementia-specific assisted living facility. We're located in Delray Beach. We also have a community in West Palm Beach and 10 assisted livings under the Arden Court name in Florida and 54 across the United States. I also want to let you know, before we go on, about our new sponsor. we do have a new sponsor. Our new sponsor is Senior Citizens Bureau, and they are coming to Florida. They are big around the country, and you might not have heard about them yet, but they're definitely coming to South Florida. They've been in existence since 1998. They serve over 650,000 young and active seniors and family caregivers, and they are an informational hub with guidance from advocates, volunteers, and experts in many, many fields and many, many areas. It's almost like having your own little AARP, but it's not for your it's not like it was in the past. This is totally different, and it's exciting because you're going to be able to access information, and they're coming to South Florida, and what will you get? You will get a real person to engage with. You will get someone on the phone who will welcome you. You will get knowledgeable volunteers. They will help you find anything from an attorney to doctors, even, how to go about starting for Medicaid or Medicare acquisitions. They will answer all those questions, and if they don't know the answer, they will find out the answer for you, believe you me. You're going to get information, and that's what they do. They're an information hub for this area coming. We're real excited that they're coming on board down here in South Florida. There's so many people that they can help. You'll never be alone because they help to connect people. They have social media. They have a lot of services that are going to be exciting coming to us. So if you'd like to check them out and you want to find out some more information about them, you can actually call them at 1-800-281-1088. Again, that's 1-800-281-1088. It's called the Senior Citizens Bureau. They also have a website, and the website is info, I-N-F-O, at seniorcitizensbureau.com, all one word. And you can even check them out on Facebook at facebook.com/Senior Citizens Bureau. So go check it out. You'll be hearing more about them coming up in the next few weeks and months. And we want to thank you for coming to listen to our show, watching us, wherever you are, because my passion, again, is dementia. Dementia is universal, no matter where you live, no matter what language you speak. It affects people, then it's not discriminating. It'll affect people from all walks of life. And so wherever you are, if you're a family caregiver, I want to applaud you. It's not easy, and please feel free to contact us, get all the help that you need. Keep checking us out here on Caregiver Reality Hour. We're going to have a lot of more information for you that you can use to make your caregiving a little bit easier. So, David, are you there?
Yes, I am.
So welcome back, and we want to see if you had any comments or questions.
Well, Marcia, first of all, I want to thank you so much for jumping in at the last minute the way you did. I've been listening to the show, and I've been watching you, and by far, you are a spectacular host. Not only that, but the wealth of information that you just gave out on the 4 Ps was more, I think, than I have given out in 2 years talking about assisted living and also respectfully talking about Arden Court, who you know how I feel about them. I think they're the gold standard. And you have been a sponsor of the show since early on, but that's not the reason you're here tonight. You're here because you are just some of the best. And I don't want to fill your head up with too much because, your mom told me take it easy, otherwise her hat won't fit.
That's right.
But I must tell you that the little tricks and techniques that I just heard tonight, people listening around the country, around the world, not everybody has an Arden Court that's close to them that's done most of the things that you need to look for almost in advance so that you could almost walk in with your suitcase if you had to, not you, but with your loved one.
Right.
And not have to give it a second thought. But for everybody else that has to, that doesn't have an Arden Court in their backyard, that has other facilities that may be just as good or maybe not as good, the information that you have given out tonight will save people not only sleepless nights, wasted hours, time, effort, and energy, but you have put it in such a concise form and in such an interesting and understandable way. Let me ask you this. Is what you have just done, because I haven't had a chance to ask you, is that available from you as a document if I wanted to go do shopping? I mean, I know your 4 Ps is kind of a proprietary thing with you, but have you committed some of this to a list, or is it part of what you have generated for Arden over the years that's available for others to be able to take this and kind of have a checklist with them when they go out shopping?
We're going to make it available for your listeners, absolutely. We're going to make it available, and so it will be coming shortly. We're putting it in a booklet-type form that we can be able to mail out to people, and it's something that will help them and like a checkoff. And it's something that is really important, like you said, because you're starting out from scratch. And it's nothing you've never done before unless you've done it before. And most people have never had to do this. And so it can be a very overwhelming task. And at least having a map, and that's what it is. It's a map to follow the 4 Ps of placement. And, of course, you saw that one of them wasn't price. But it's a puzzle. And this helps you put your puzzle together. And it will be made available at a future date.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that. And you said for my audience, my listeners, but really, Marcia, they're your audience and your listeners too, because you have done such a great job tonight that I'm going to go out of my way to figure out a way that going forward, maybe I can convince you, notwithstanding all the busy things you have to do with Arden and everybody else, if you can come on as a regular and be a co-host with me. Because
wow.
I think you add not only a dimension that I don't have, I almost said dementia, but a dimension that I don't have.
I hope you don't have a dementia.
I hope I don't either. This illness that's laid me up for the last couple of weeks, I don't know what it's done to my brain. I think it definitely has softened it. But notwithstanding, I think that you and I co-hosting back and forth, and with the knowledge that you have, certainly what I've learned in getting old and crotchety, it can be a very, very dynamic situation for people. And, you and I have just discussed a little bit about how we might take this kind of information and bring it forward to the public in other ways, not just by continuing on with our Tuesday Caregiver Reality Hour, but bringing on different aspects and bringing on other ways of presenting information, people, resources. When I was listening to you tonight and I realized all the stuff that you put on the table, and that I didn't want to interrupt you, but I could have jumped in and had a million other questions, but you were doing such a great job that I didn't want to do that. But, it opened up my eyes to the fact, and especially when you started to talk about Senior Citizens Bureau, and I really appreciate you doing what you did for them tonight, because I know this was the first time you were exposed to them literally on a sheet of paper at the last minute. But this is a very dynamic organization, and it's one of the reasons I've affiliated the program and myself with them. Because
it sounds very exciting.
It is. Mm-hmm. And they're bringing a level of member that's moving the age down a little bit. We talk about caregiving. You certainly talk about dementia, and we all think of these things as just, stuff that happens when we get older. But, as a gerontologist and somebody who's been studying aging for a long, long time, I really understand very well that we are all moving into what I call our third age. From 1 to 30, we were growing up. We were going to school. We were figuring out maybe we were going to get married or what we were going to do. And then 30 to 55 or 60, we were world beaters. We got jobs. We acquired assets. We did things, and we built that second age of our life. And now we're facing, at least a large portion of the country and the world, our third age. All right? Which is no reason that it shouldn't be just as dynamic and exciting. Sure, there are things that happen to us because we're older, But, I was sitting here today and I was reading today's Wall Street Journal, which I had time to do. And the headline in the personal journal today was, "To grow old without disease." And, they're talking about life expectancy is getting longer and the number of years that we've now added to life by knocking out some of the cancers and heart disease and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And to understand that the things that used to, put us out of commission much earlier in life are being taken care of. And the thing we have to do is be able to prepare for.
Because nobody wants to live long if you don't have quality of life, You want to live long, but you also want quality of life. So as they say, how do you age gracefully? And how do you keep that way?
Right. And that's part of what you and I have been talking about for a while in bringing to the public and in doing in some new and more interesting ways to be able to show people that because you reached a certain age, a lot of people say 70 is the new 50. Mm-hmm. But do you really believe that, or are you saying that because you don't like the idea of somebody saying, I'm 70? I turned a little over 70, a year or so ago, not a little over. and I certainly understand, that there come certain stigmas, but there doesn't have to be. And that's part of going forward, what we're here to talk about, not just the infirmities of getting old and what you do, and gosh knows that's important, but how do you maximize this third age? How do you make a better job of getting to be 90?
Lots and lots more to talk about.
You bet. And I want to thank you again. And to
My
our
pleasure.
listeners, we've had Marsha Teal on tonight, a real expert. And I'm going to let everybody take the show away. And thank you again. And we'll be back next Tuesday. Thank you, Marsha.
Thank you, David.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver reality show. Each week, David Levy, a gerontologist, providing practical and realistic help to caregivers struggling to keep up with the needs of a loved one who are unable to care for himself or herself. To reach David Levy, email him at david@caregiverreality.com and find out more online. Just go to caregiverreality.com. See you next week for another exciting show of Caregiver Reality. The opinions expressed on the preceding